they're basically throwing the middle finger up and going, don't care, doing it our way. And by the way, we're going to lay down the same discipline that we did. Deal with it.
Azeez Al-Shaair, of course, suspended 3 games by the NFL by Karen Runyon. He had it, of course, had the appeal heard by the guy that works in Tennessee radio, which he did not reduce the suspension, still a 3-game suspension for Azeez Al-Shaair. And what's really weird to me, and I think it's worthy of a conversation, the first one is, Why is this guy the arbiter? Why is the guy that works for the Tennessee Titans, that is literally employed by the Tennessee Titans, why is he the guy weighing in on the ruling of one Azeez Al-Shaair? He's literally employed by the Tennessee Titans. I did a little bit of a deep dive yesterday. He does morning radio for the flagship every single day. Every Monday through Friday, he does morning radio for their flagship station in Nashville.
This is basically the NFL's way of just letting everybody know without flat out saying it. We can do whatever the hell we want, and we're going to show you that whatever you think matters doesn't. That this is ridiculous that you didn't think about this before you did anything, both with Runyon and in this case with Ramon Foster, and just said, you know what? It's a really bad look for the league if we do this. We have other options. We should probably go that route just to avoid any backlash. They're basically throwing the middle finger up and going, don't care, doing it our way. And by the way, we're going to lay down the same discipline that we did. Deal with it.
He's employed by the Titans. And
that's ridiculous.
Even if we eliminate that there was, we don't know if there was bias here. We have no idea. Maybe Ramon Foster, we do think that the precedent shouldn't have led to a 3-game suspension. But let's just eliminate the idea that Ramon Foster had any sort of bias here. Let's assume that Ramon Foster did this as fair as possible, that he weighed in every single nugget of information, and let's say he was completely right down the middle. I understand that's a reach, but let's just assume that for a moment. Shouldn't the NFL and the NFLPA just eliminate a guy that could be a division rival for the sake of the conversation that we, quite honestly, are having right now? So you can eliminate all of the Houston Texans fans. You can eliminate the Houston media. You can eliminate the Houston blowhards that talk behind a microphone, which includes us. You can eliminate that conversation simply by using somebody else. That, to me, is where it doesn't make any sense. The NFL opens themselves up to, this conspiracy of, okay, well, you have a Tennessee Titan that's weighing in on the appeal of a Houston Texan. Ramon Foster. Yesterday, they have a show Twitter page where it talks about their show and things that are coming up on the show. Adam Schefter tweeted Ramon Foster is the hearing official in today's appeal for Azeez Al-Shaair. The show Twitter put the eye emoji quote tweeting it. It's they're having fun with this. They're mocking this. They're having fun at the expense of Azeez Al-Shaair. They're making light of the situation, which annoys me, quite frankly.
You think about this from any business perspective. The first thing you want to do is try to be forward-thinking and walk through a process before you actually make decisions so that you can weigh the pros and the cons and make sure you don't have egg on your face. This is ridiculous that they either didn't do that and didn't have the foresight to do such, or they just figured, again, we'll throw the middle finger up on both hands and say, don't care, won't care, going to do it our way. You're going to deal with it no matter what we say. It is a joke that you had other options as well. You're not financially constrained to say, I've only got one guy doing this job. It's unfortunate, we allow him to have a second job where he works for a team that's in your division. No, you had multiple options both times, and this is what you chose to do. This is the league saying we're bigger than you, and we're going to do whatever the hell we want.
Yeah, he's not the only one that does this. It could have been Jordy Nelson. It could have been Derek Brooks. And that's the other thing. Cody Stoots, I should say, he tweeted out this morning, I guess he was listening to the radio show, and Foster said that he wasn't going to talk about this. And, he also equated to how Derek Brooks works with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Okay, I don't know how that makes any sense. It would make more sense if Derek Brooks was the guy that was the arbiter. Because, why? Because he's not a division rival. So Ramon Foster, saying that Derek Brooks is a member of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers makes no sense to me, quite frankly.
This also, Jeremy, goes back to what I said previously when we were talking about this, about from the eyes of a defender, if you're going to have Runyon, who was one of the dirtiest players in the NFL, be a guy that's judging dirty plays, well, then why don't you have a linebacker be the guy that's the arbiter when dealing with a linebacker when we're trying to evaluate how much time does he need to be able to pull up, pull away, the severity of the hit, all those other things. That would make more sense if you're going to go with the first choice of Runyon. But either way, you could have avoided all this and said, here, Jordy Nelson, take this one.
Yeah. The Jordy Nelson, Derek Brooks make more sense, and Foster be like, well, Brooks plays for Tampa Bay. He's got a bias. No, he doesn't. It's a different one. It's a different division. Two, it's a different conference. You're a division rival where your owner, that's paying you checks, by the way, hates the Houston Texan ownership. So that I can't believe we didn't make a bigger deal about that yesterday. This would be like me being the person that is the arbiter for a Texas Tech player being suspended. Quite frankly, it's exactly what it is. Like, let's say that Brett Yormark, Big 12 commissioner, suspended a random Texas Tech player for 3 or 4 games. He appealed, and I was the arbiter because I do sidelines for Houston. I have a radio show in Houston. How stupid would that be? How stupid would it be if Branham was the arbiter of a Texas Tech player being suspended? That is the equivalent to what happened yesterday. Seth Payne would be the equivalent. I joked around about Mark Vandermeer. Seth Payne's probably the better example because Seth Payne played in the NFL. He does get employed by the Texans to appear on their pregame radio show ahead of their Texans games. He does morning radio at the flagship. This would be like if Seth Payne heard the suspension of Calvin Ridley.
Yeah, the only thing missing would be if you guys had been in the Big 12 long enough to develop a rivalry to where you could say, hey, not only are you going to be the arbiter in this case, but it happens to be with your biggest rival within your conference. Because that would actually kind of equate to what we're talking about here. When we know that Amy Adams Skunk hates the Texans. She got the game ball because they beat the Texans. We know the whole uniform and all the other crap that goes on and how Hannah and seems to have an issue, the Texans back going back at her. This is a joke, only it's reality. And that's what makes no sense is the fact that it basically just shows you that they put their big boy pants on and said, just don't care.
Yeah, it's quite ridiculous. And the timeline's also, like, putting that conversation aside, the other part of the timeline is interesting yesterday because we know that Azeez Al-Shaair was getting the appeal heard by Ramon Foster, who is employed by the Tennessee Titans. We later know that, of course, the suspension got upheld. We found out right around the time where the appeal was ending that Adam Schefter tweeted that the Jaguars placed Terrence Lawrence on IR. And his season looks to be done. And whenever you read that tweet and knowing that Trevor Lawrence was concussed and got carted off the field, whenever you read the tweet, Jaguars place Trevor Lawrence on injury reserve, we all think concussion. We all think head, right? Like our minds immediately go there. We talked about this on the show yesterday. Like, do we think that Trevor Lawrence being placed on injured reserve is going to have a factor on Azeez Al-Shaair's suspension? I think that it probably does. I think the injury from the moment it happened and then getting placed to injury reserve yesterday is part of the equation. Because I do think it's a bad look. Be like, okay, we're going to drop Azeez Al-Shaair's suspension down to 1 game or 2 game the day that Trevor Lawrence was placed on the IR for an injury that we thought at the time was because of Azeez Al-Shaair's hit. So we think during the really all day that Trevor Lawrence placed on injury reserve, and we think it's for the concussion. The suspension gets upheld. 5:39, Adam Schefter, I saw this from Stressens. 5:39, Adam Schefter tweets, the 3-game suspension of Houston linebacker Azeez Al-Shaair was upheld. At 5:57, which this is quick math, 18 minutes later, Ian Rappaport tweets, Trevor Lawrence is expected to have surgery to repair a significant AC joint injury in his left shoulder in the coming weeks. His season is over. So he wasn't placed on the IR for the concussion. No. He was placed on IR for the shoulder injury that's going to require surgery, yet that piece of information was held out for 3 hours and didn't come out until 18 minutes after the decision on the Azeez Al-Shaair, the appeal being upheld. The timeline is fascinating.
It's ridiculous in the fact as well that we knew during the telecast, during the game, and leading up to the game that Trevor Lawrence was still iffy because they were debating whether he was going to have surgery to end his season. Then they said on the telecast, hey, you know what? Trevor Lawrence said, as a leader of this football team, I want to show for my teammates that I'm there. I'm going to try and play. But we knew that he was borderline, being shut down for the rest of the season because they're not going anywhere. They had an option if they were going to shut him down to say, what of the 2 injuries? This, again, it's all calculated. It's all being used against the Texans. It's all because the league lets all of this happen. It's a joke because we knew before the game even started that he was being there was a possibility he was going to be shut down for his shoulder.
Yeah, it's the timeline's interesting to me. The fact that you have a division rival, guy who gets paid by a division rival, is interesting to me too. And it lacks sense from the NFL. Even if Ramon Foster was completely unbiased and fair, which he could have been. Like, I'm not going to sit here and call Ramon Foster's character into question like Karen Runyon did to Azeez Al-Shaair. I'm not going to go down that low to Karen Runyon's level. But the look of having a division rival employee making the call on the suspension and the appeal, rather, of Azeez Al-Shaair, it reeks of conspiracy. Not saying it happened, but how do you not eliminate the conversation beforehand? It's crazy.
I also don't understand how you is the league not making enough money that you guys can't pay these guys well enough, but also in their to say in their contracts, this is your job, because of the fact, like, you can prevent Tom Brady from being if you're an owner, you're not supposed to be a broadcaster, and then they put in all those other different things. But do we need the second and third jobs? And we're going to allow that, because it would seem like from week to week with all these fines and all these suspensions and all these things that they have to review, there's plenty enough to do for the four guys that you should say, you know what, we can't have you having side jobs with the other with a team.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like, I imagine he gets paid more with like doing radio and doing Titans radio than he does being an arbiter every now and then for the NFL.
You think so?
Oh, I think so.
I think because
I don't think he's an employee.
This is like the referees. Like, before, the referees had side jobs because
they get paid probably like $5,000 a game.
But now it's I think it's up from that. I think
it's pretty high.
Yeah,
like,
they get six figures, I think, to be an NFL referee.
An arbiter's probably on contract. Like, he's probably not on payroll, right? Like, he's probably those are kind of the same thing. He's probably freelance. Like, I can't imagine that he's collecting. I don't know, man. I can't imagine they're paying a dude who's working 4 days a year insurance.
I would say it's probably seasonal during the season that they are on a salary for 8 months and then I don't know if you're going to base it on workload or not, but I would think, and it's the NFL. I mean, they're printing money. You can't pay your employees for something that obviously is important during the course of the season as it relates to players' availability.
Yeah. I mean, getting out in the weeds on this not that important. I wonder. Like, I don't know if they're paying an independent arbiter who's he's making a point or is doing his task. I mean, how many times a year do you think he's ruling on stuff and appeal? I can't imagine it's more than half a dozen. There's like 4 of them.
Well, but it's not even just the appeal. They also make the judgment on the fines from week to week for the hits.
I don't
and things
think
like that
Ramon Foster has anything to do with that. I think that's why he's an independent arbiter. Because if he was doing that, he's no longer independent.
Well, no, because I thought that they've said that, like, Derek Brooks and some of the other guys have been the whatever representative of the league.
I don't know how that's an independent arbiter then. I don't know how that's an independent arbiter that doesn't have skin in the game.
I don't either.
Yeah, I'm not real sure. 713-780-ESPN HRP listener line. Did the way that D'Amico and Caserio come out against the NFL whenever they had Azeez's back, did that come into play here? And are we overblowing how big of a loss Azeez will be for the Texans for the next 3 games? 713-780-ESPN HRP listener line. We're on Twitch, twitch.tv/ESPN975, on YouTube at ESPN Houston, also on Twitter at ESPN975. Blankers at Pac-Man Joel. I'm at Jeremy Branham. Brian's at Sack by BMAC. It's the Bees, ESPN 97.5, ESPN 92.5.
Guys, a word from our good friend Doc Linville. He's right here in the Med Center, and with the holidays coming up, maybe you want that extra gift, or maybe you want a gift for yourself or your significant other that really could make a big difference in their lives. Doc Linville's there for you. He does all kinds of things. He does plastic surgery. He does Botox. He does all kinds of different things that can help you. Spa treatments. Maybe it's a nice gift like that. But for guys in particular, he can get your hair back, and it's an amazing transformation that uses your own hair. It's a process that is really simple. It's basically painless, and you can get your own hair back, and you can see it at its full and best self in 6 to 9 months, but you'll see the follicles almost immediately. It's absolutely fantastic. And all you got to do is go to 975hair.com and sign up for a free consultation. They can explain everything to you for free. People off the street pay $150 for this consult. You get it for free because you're listening to me and you want to talk to him. Go in there. Ask questions, get answers, have them explain everything from the PRP treatments, which is like fertilizing the lawn or kind of supplementing the hair that you still have on your head, to the fact that the NeoGraft procedure is a game changer. He takes hair from the sides and the back of your head where you're never going to lose your hair genetically and moves it to where you need it most, and it's going to stay for the rest of your life. It's going to get